I'm just going to start with something really easy. For those of you who don't know what a design sprint is, I just want to set the context, give a short definition to it, and then we're going to dive into the more complex stuff. So definition of the design sprint, it's a 4 or 5 day workshop where a team solves a big challenges. How do they do that? They're looking at user needs, they generate solution. Most importantly, they create a prototype that they test with real customers at the end of the week. And the really cool thing about design sprints is that they get to see the reactions to their concepts, to their ideas, without wasting time, resources, money, building them. So great process for validation. How does this thing work? As I mentioned, it's a diverse cross-functional team of experts that goes through this structured workshop, starts with a big challenge or a big idea they want to validate, and then get data in just 1 week, following some very specific steps. And what you can see on my screen now is the original process of design sprint as published in the book. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of each of the phases now. And the sprint starts on a Monday. Let's say it's the first day of the week with understanding the problem. So what the team does, they're trying to understand this big challenge they're tackling from 2 perspectives. One is the business perspective, and then the other one is the customer or user perspective. And by the end of this understanding phase, they're going to define a direction to the sprint and focus on the most critical part of the problem that they want to tackle. On the second day of the sprint, the team will come up with ideas, but everyone in the team will sketch their own individual take on how they would solve that problem. So by the end of this second day, you're going to end up with a bunch of competing solutions to the same problem. Third day is about deciding, is about evaluating all of these solutions and putting them together, stringing them into a master concept that's your storyboard, which you then prototype on the fourth day and test with customers in the fifth day. So that's kind of like what the process looks like, and what you can expect at the end of it is to validate or invalidate your solution to the problem. You'll also get new customer insights. You'll see what's working, what's not, why doesn't it work, and most importantly, you're going to learn a lot and have a lot of actionable next steps. So I think that was the quickest run through the design sprint.
You can take it slower.
I think good. That was the easy part. Now I want to talk a little bit about the evolution of design sprints. And they appeared at Google in 2010 when people were trying to break from these endless cycles of meetings when launching a new project or a new idea. And then they found that like really good things happen if we get people in a room where they can get to focus uninterrupted, and they can work on a single thing at a time. Further on in 2012, Jake Knapp, who experienced design sprints, was working with Google Ventures. Google Ventures needed a way to validate products for the startup that they were invested in. So Jake Knapp, together with John Zeratsky and other designers at Google Ventures, refined the process. And then the process spread at Google because people could see it's working. And in 2014, Google needed more capacity to run design sprints. So that's when they established their Sprint Academy, where they train their own facilitators on the process and taught them how to conduct sprints. The process became a world hit in 2016 when this book came out, Sprint by Jake Knapp. It made, I think, New York bestsellers list immediately, so it became a hit. And then after this, there were like early adopters of design sprints. We were part of them as well. And in 2018, you got the Design Sprint 2.0. This is an iteration which was launched by AJ Smart, a product design studio here in Berlin, and they basically made it 4 days from 5 days and introduced all sorts of techniques to improve the efficiency during the sprint. Then in 2019, Design Sprint Academy, or us, we introduced Design Sprint 3.0 because we've been working all of these years doing sprints in large enterprises on very complex challenges. and then we needed a little bit more from the process. And we introduced problem framing, we introduced elements from design thinking, and a lot of empathy, which was missing in the initial process, and that's kind of what formed our Design Sprint 3.0 version. And I'm going to dive a little bit later into it. And then today, what can we expect? I would say we say AI design sprints and AI powered design sprints. Two different concepts. The first one is about using the design sprints to either introduce AI technology into existing solutions or products, or creating whole new products based on AI. And also, from the beginning of this year, we've been using AI as a consultant in our design sprints, augmenting our facilitation capability, but also those of the team. And we said that we're just getting started. We think design sprints are a very effective process, and I think design sprints are here to stay. So whatever comes, they're still going to remain a very efficient process for collaboration, for innovation, for problem solving, and we're sure it can adapt to everything that comes. So the question that we can ask is, like, why did design sprints need to evolve? Like, what was something wrong with the original process? Why didn't it work as initially written? And I'm not saying it's anything wrong with the original process. It's just that you have different use cases, and design sprints are no silver bullet by any means, and no one size fits all. And I'm just going to talk about a few differences or challenges that kind of made us think of, okay, how can we improve or evolve this process? If we think about it, the original process emerged from Google Ventures, and there they work mostly with startups, and that's why in this comparison, we do have the startups where the process was originally used and they were the early adopters of it. But also we have the large organizations which are more and more adopting the design sprints and using design sprints in their practice. So that's why we have both startups and large organizations here. One of the things that's very important to a design sprint is assembling a team, and you need a team of experts working on solving that problem. In a startup environment, that's very easy to do. You have a small team anyways, you can easily access everyone, you can coordinate logistics. So it's very easy to assemble the right team of experts to work on a problem. That's not the same thing in a large organizations. Clearing schedules for experts can be very daunting. And then you have their organizations with hundreds or thousands of people. How do you know which people you want to bring in there? There's lots of challenges due to size, the complexity, the hierarchy. You need managers' approval to get the right people in the room. So you face all of these challenges assembling the sprint team. Not very easy. Then, besides the actual sprinting, which are your experts solving the problem, there's the matter of accessing key stakeholders, people who either hold very important information or are able to make decisions and give the go-aheads, buy-in, and so on. In the startups, you have a very small founding team. You have your investors, maybe a couple of advisors. So it's very easy to get them, and they're all directly invested in this. So it's in their best interest to do it. In a large organization, it's different. You have lots and lots of stakeholders. Again, multiple layers of hierarchy here with the stakeholders. The decision-making process, it's a mystery sometimes, even for those working in the same organization. So again, it's quite difficult securing the buy-in to run a design sprint or get people in a design sprint. So that's another aspect. Then we're talking about the how agile and adaptable these companies are. Design startups, when they saw the sprint process, it's like, oh, this is for us. Like we can quickly use this to validate our solution. So let's just run a design sprint. Very easy. On Monday morning, we show up at work, we start working with a design sprint. Not so easy in a large organization that has bureaucracy, has already standardized existing processes. It's very hard to get the buy-in to embed yet another new process in their workflow. So again, that's another roadblock in front of design sprints. And then finally, we have user centricity. If we think about it, most or many startups aim to solve real customer problems because in most of the cases, they had been experienced by the founding team. Now, you would say that they are closer to the user needs, and they will focus to prioritize these user needs in their decision making. I'm not saying every startup in the world does this, but that's the majority of them, let's say. Whereas in large organizations, key stakeholders are far removed from the users. Of course, there might be some who are not, but generally they are. And the higher up they are, the further they are from the customers. And that's why when they make decisions, in most instances, is the business goals that take precedence versus the user needs. So these are like some of the challenges that we encountered when running design sprints in large enterprises, and we needed a way to overcome these challenges and make sure that the process, the design sprint, works as seamless in large organization as it did in startups. So for us, the answer was quite simple. In order to overcome these challenges, all we needed is make sure that we understand the full context in which we're running the design sprint, define the problem at the beginning so we're clear on what we're working on, and start at the top, meaning we needed to have the right buy-in from the stakeholders to make sure that they're invested in what we're doing. But it's easier said than done, because the process as it was designed was not really helping all of the time doing all of these things. Why? Because if you think about it, the process is focused on the solution space 80% of the time. The design sprint is really a problem-solving framework. We're only focusing on the problem space 20% at the beginning of the process in the first day. And in the first day, when the team is trying to share their knowledge, what they know about the problem, bringing their perspectives, how do you know you have the right experts in the room? How are you sure? How do you make sure that their knowledge is up to date? And how do you make sure they are sharing the right data and not something that's just top of mind in that moment? Also, there is this misconception that the first day of the design sprint is about defining the problem, and the sprint team defines the problem right there and right then. And that might work in a startup where everyone is exposed to everything, but in a large organization, what if you're picking something that's not the right problem? What if you're picking something that's so big, so complex, that cannot be then unpacked in the next 2 or 3 hours that you have, that's your time to do it? What if you pick something, the team is super excited about it, but then it's not really aligned to what business stakeholders want to do, and then nothing's going to happen after the sprint? What if other business units are already working on it? And it actually happened to us in one design sprint, and on Tuesday we had to go back to the drawing board and start again. So you can have all of these things happening. Also, in the original design sprint, you have an exercise where you map the problem during the first day. That can work very well with a startup that does laundry service, right? But it's not so easy to do it in very complex enterprise scenario. Let's say where you're in a manufacturing environment, or when you're building a stadium or whatever that might be. So how do you know that you have all of the elements or all of the information to build a journey and you're not fantasizing? How can you make sure that you're focusing on the right target audience, on the right customers? So these are all very important things, because if you don't get the problem right, you're never going to get a right answer. Because as you can see here, you'll never get a right answer to the wrong problem. And then when you start the sprint, in order to get the right problem, there's a lot that goes into it. First of all, you do have the business side of things. There needs to be a business need. There are like some KPIs you want to hit. That's why you want to run the design sprint and find a solution. You need to factor in trends, your competition, even your product or service roadmap, the resources you have for implementation. So all of these elements need to go into the sprint challenge. But then there's not enough. You also want to consider the customer problems that you're solving, right? Like, why do you do that in the first place? You want to look at existing solutions. You want to leverage research and data you already have. You don't want to work with assumptions as much as possible. So it's all of these things that go into a good design sprint challenge when you're trying to run it at an enterprise level, that simply you cannot afford going into it into a design sprint blind or without doing some work. And that's kind of like what informs our design sprint 3.0 approach, where we get all of this data, all of this information that I showed, and we're gathering it and then using a process that we created, which is called problem framing. We're looking at all of this data, and together with key decision makers, we're aligning on what is the most important problem statement. And then that's something that we take through the design sprint process. And from now on, I'm just going to go through the design sprint 3.0 approach and show you what we're doing at every single step. We have 3 key stages: what happens before the sprint, during the sprint, and after the sprint. And one of the most important things that that you have to do that happens are before the sprint. Now, there are some timelines here, depending on the complexity of the challenge, how big the challenge is. They could be shorter or longer. I'm just giving you average, but a full end-to-end process, a design sprint in an enterprise scenario, you can run it from anything from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, something like this. Anyway, groundwork typically takes us 1 or 2 weeks. We work with innovation managers or product managers, right? Like whoever's leading the project. And what we do, we're getting all of that data that exists around the problem space. There might be research, whether quantitative or qualitative. We try to identify key stakeholders and decision makers, and we interview them to get their point of view on the problem, and then assemble the decision-making team. So we want to make sure that we have these things right. Why? Because by doing these things, we look at the customer problem through the research, and lots of organizations already have research. You can't just ignore that going into a design sprint and say like, no, we're just going to run a design sprint with no research, just assumptions. That's not really possible. So we're looking at the customer problem, but also because we're interviewing key stakeholders and identifying them, we also take into account the business need. They're equally important. And then once we do this groundwork, as I was saying, 1 to 2 weeks, we go into a problem framing workshop. On average, that takes about 1 day. It involves decision makers. So think project sponsor, whoever can make a decision around the project, whoever can kill the project, whoever has the budget. This is how you can identify these stakeholders. And basically, problem framing is all about putting, or this workshop is all about putting the information or the right information in front of the right people so they can make informed decisions. And by the end of a problem framing workshop, they will end up with problem statements going through a few phases. They're going to contextualize the problem, so everyone fully going to understand the context of the challenge. Then they're going to bring in the business need and justify why they want to do it. Then go through the customer perspective, and at the very end, land on a problem statement. So if you look at this, we cover the business, right? Like common ground for stakeholders, and we align them on the same success metrics because everyone would probably measure it differently at the beginning. And then we bring in the customer and help them get empathy with the customer and hopefully change their perspective so they can focus on the right problem statements, which are in fact our sprint challenges. Once we have the sprint challenge, then we go into oh no.
Some case studies.
Oh, I had case studies.
Yeah, we go into it's so
See?
new.
So new, very new. I forgot. Like, yeah, I wanted to give you a few examples of where we use this. So from our previous work. One of the problem framing sessions we ran, it was with a major publisher here in Europe, and they wanted to target a new audience, a younger audience for their newspaper, and they weren't quite aligned on how to do it. And when they engaged us, they had been spending time in meetings for 6 months, not really agreeing on which opportunity to pursue. And then with one problem framing session, we help them contextualize the problem. Here we use this tool we like, the industry context map, where they could look at all of their products, their value propositions, the different audiences, current challenges, technology trends, competition. So all of these things to understand the context. Justifying the business need is not something we did in this workshop because it was quite clear why they wanted to do it. But then what was more important, because they wanted to come up with opportunities, was understanding the customer. And of course, they were like such a large organization. They had tons of data and research, what we helped them do was visualize it and put it in front of them in a form of a map like this, and that helped them come up with opportunities. They came up with many of them, which we prioritized based on the value to the customer and to the business. In this case, they voted, and we ended up with about 5 very good problem statements. So again, problem framing is very useful because you don't only end with one problem statement. You could have like a backlog of design sprints of challenges on the back of just one session. Another example was where we work with a global manufacturer, and they wanted to optimize the manufacturing process in the factories where on the factory floor, workers a lot of time experience systems malfunctioning, and yeah, they didn't know how to solve them, and they had language issues. They only spoke the local language. They couldn't really reach easily the help desk, explain anyway, and stopping a factory cost millions per day. So that's why it was very important for them to optimize this process and look at this problem. And another one was, in this case, we use problem framing more in an exploratory way. We worked with one of the largest US construction companies, and they produce, if that's the right word, a lot of data, and they thought there might be opportunities around the data. So they want to see which they are, so they can find some so they can build new products and services around it. So these are like a few examples of how you can use problem framing. As you can see, these challenges that I presented are very big. There's no way you can take them into a design sprint and say like, okay, let's find an innovation opportunity here, or like, let's target a new audience, because like, where do you even begin? You need to dive deeper into this. You need to dissect these big problems into smaller chunks, more defined, and then you can take the right experts and run a design sprint. So that's kind of like what you expect to have at the end of this problem framing process. One more thing that I want to say about problem framing is that in problem framing, you would engage key stakeholders. This team is in most cases different from that of in a design sprint, because in problem framing, you get decision makers, key stakeholders. In a design sprint, you would get subject matter experts. Who are able to solve the problem once the buy-in is there. So
yeah, and in a way, I think it's also like answers the questions like, how do you get the buy-in? Trust me, when your key decision makers finally get to see how the context looks like, what the data is, and how the situation looks like, they're very, very involved. And also, when they also make the decision of what to focus on, they are definitely going to get their buy-in.
Because also in real life, all of these decision makers, they make decisions based on incomplete data. They just don't have the data, and there's a lot of pressure on them to make these decisions, the right decisions. There's a lot of pressure on them. They're also just as afraid as anyone else when confronted with the situation. So in problem framing, when you get the data, you put it in front of them.
And you bring everyone who's at the same level so that they can get to align and really share their thoughts and perspectives. The game changes.
Because we get this question a lot when we do trainings, like, oh, but how do you get a senior director or a vice president of something in a design sprint and have them there for 4 or 5 days? And our answer is like, we don't. We don't need them there. Maybe they come for an interview, but like, we don't need their participation. We need them in problem framing. We need their blessing to run the design sprint and make sure the team is on the right direction. And then we engage them after the design sprint, showing them, hey, this is what we came up with. But like, we don't need them in the actual problem solving process. We need them in the problem definition process. And I think that's a key concept of our design sprint 3.0, where we separate these two elements, problem definition from problem solving.
Decision makers need to make decisions. This is where they play at their best. Problem solvers need to come up with the solutions.
And then we finish problem framing. There is another planning phase, but this time for the design sprint, because it's really important that now that you know which problem you're solving, you can assemble the right team of experts. I mean, think about it. You know what the problem is. Then it's very easy to ask yourself, okay, who do we need to solve this problem? We need marketing, we need sales, who in marketing, who in sales, who in design, who in development. Like it's very easy to put together this team of experts. And then also because we know the problem, we know who this problem is affecting. We've already looked at the customers, so we already know who we're going to test with, so we can start recruiting user testers. Then we do the sprint prep. There are some artifacts we always prepare before the sprint. I'm going to show them in a sec. And most importantly, we're going to onboard the team, so everyone knows why they're there, why they were selected, and what they're supposed to do during the design sprint. And again, that really helps us with another question that we're getting: how can you get people to stay committed for 4 or 5 days? Easy. We're onboarding them. They know why they're being selected, and they commit to this. So that's why we don't have these sort of problems during our workshops, because then it would be too late to address. So we're going through all of these stages, and then finally we move into the design sprint. We have a great problem statement. It's really well defined. We do have a team of experts that's assembled. We really know that they have capabilities to solve the problem. So then we're going through this process in 4 days. By the way, design sprint 3.0, it's 4 days versus the original 5 days. So that's one of the changes that we've done. Now I just want to take you through all of the different changes that we've done to the process. And this is how it looks. First day, these are a few exercises that we do. These are additions to the process because they're not included in the sprint book. So I'm talking here about the lightning talks, the empathy part, and customer journey mapping and map to map. These are things that we created. And now I'm just going to explain you what they are and why we thought they're good for the sprint. The first one is lightning talks. In the book, the process starts Monday morning with the team having conversations to set up a long-term goal. There's not much structure to it, and when we ran these processes, we needed structure because, like, how do we do that? And Lightning Talks was our solution, and basically, it's a series of quick talks that everyone in the team gives in order to share their perspective on the problem that they are tackling. We need to do this because team members, they have no common ground. Everyone might come from a different might come with a different perspective or angle on the problem. You don't know what others know, and then if you have unstructured talks, you might go in circular discussions which lead nowhere, and they're just going to drain the team's energy. So we structure these lightning talks, and then also very important in a design sprint, you need to capture all of these conversations, which we do by using the rose, thorn, bud design thinking method. And basically, at the end of such a session, this is how it looks. As you can see on the left-hand side image, you'd see the output of each individual talk, and then by looking at them, you can extract big conversation themes, and then you have an aggregated output of the conversation. It's color-coded, so I know you can't read the post-its, but I think everyone can say that pink is challenges, green is things that are working well, and then blue is opportunities, ideas. That's why it's called buds. So by the end of this exercise, everyone is aligned. We also prepare this exercise during onboarding, so it's a very smooth start to the design sprints. And then we're going to use this, the output of this session a bit later, you'll see. And I think one of the key elements we introduced was like the empathy map. And empathy map, for those of you who don't know, it's a visual representation of what the team thinks about their customer. And we needed the empathy map for a few reasons, because first of all, teams had gaps in their understanding of the customer, or they had a challenge empathizing with the customer. Also, a big one is because we needed a way to leverage existing user research. We're working with organizations that have research departments, they have a wealth of data, and you need to have a way to bring that into a design sprint, and this empathy map exercise is great. It's one of them. And yeah, not everyone was emotionally invested in the problem. Like once you gain the empathy, like the team gets more invested and it's more willing to solve, and they're motivated to find the solution. This is how an empathy map looks like. It's based on the research and actual data, and it really helps the team get on the same page around the customer, which makes it much easier for them to think of solution as opposed to only working with assumptions, things in their head. So that's one of the exercises that we've introduced. And then another one is customer journey map. I know in the sprint you do have a map, a sprint map, but like we're taking this to another level. It's more like in design thinking or service design. Customer journey map. It also could be a customer experience map or a service blueprints. We have different kinds of maps depending on the problem. But essentially, it's a step-by-step visualization of how the customer experiences a product, how they solve a challenge, how they're achieving whatever goal they want to achieve. And we needed this because in a sprint, if you're doing the map in a sprint, it's very much based on the assumptions or whatever knowledge the team has in that moment, and it might not accurately represent what's going on. And also because and it also might lead to a wrong focus or focusing on the wrong part of the problem, because being based on assumptions, everyone might consider something else as being important, and then they're not really focusing on actual user needs. How we're doing it, this is one of the artifacts we're creating prior to the sprint. As you can see here on the screen, this is coming from a sprint we did with an online shopping retailer. And this is the map we created. It's very accurate. We interviewed them, so it represents exactly what's going on. And that's something we did in Mural or Miro, I forgot. Anyway, so it's something you would prepare with the team ahead of time. And now bringing both of these together, the empathy map and the customer journey map for a complete image, we have the map-to-map exercise. And that, as I was saying, it paints the full picture, and it really helps the team uncover insights and highlight areas of opportunity. And this is how it looks. This is the previous map that you saw. Like, yes, we do prepare the maps ahead of time during the groundwork. But like in the sprint, as you can see, there's a lot of handwritten post-its here. The team does share their own perspective as well. They do interact with the map. They can change it, so they fully understand the entire context, and then okay, what are our areas of opportunity? So this is the first day, and the change exercises. We still have on the first day the long-term goal. I mentioned this in the book. This is how the sprint starts, with the team setting up a long-term goal, an objective, and with sprint question measuring how they fare against it. Now, we found it as a very difficult process because Monday morning, first thing, you're asking people to come up with the long-term goal. It doesn't work so easy. It's much easier to do it at the end of the first day, once the team had gone through all of the information. They understood the business perspective of the challenge. They understood the customer and their journey and what they're doing. So having had all of this knowledge, it's much easier for them to decide what the long-term goal should be, and also the sprint question. So this is how this is something that we do towards the end of the first day. Ask the experts, we didn't change much here. I mean, it's still a session that we're doing in day one. These are typically additional experts, external experts, for sharing more information with the sprint team. And the only change that we've done is the fact that we're capturing the output of the expert interviews in the raw Stormbot format, that the same as with the lightning talks. Whereas in the book, you would generate how might we based on that. And speaking of it, how might we? That's another big challenge that we've done, because we made it a standalone exercise. Why is that? In the book, this was done during the Ask the Experts, and the team was capturing notes. I mean, they were like hearing something, and then they were transforming it immediately into a how might we question. So whenever they heard a problem, they would rephrase it as an opportunity using this technique. Now, the problem with that is that all of the how might we's looked the same, and also you have a skewed and biased perspective, because you're only using the team's or the experts' point of view for this how might we's. We made it as a standalone exercise, and it's very important for the how might we to be grounded in real insights, right? And that's why we have multiple sources of inspiration for the how might we. The team will look at the raw Stormbots from the morning discussions during the lightning talks. Also, they're going to look at the pain points and desired outcomes and insights from the customer journey maps. And finally, they're also going to look at what the experts said during Ask the Expert. So all of a sudden, you have 3 sources of information providing super valuable insights that the team can take, and then they have time to reflect, digest them, and then focus on the most important ones and turn those into how might we. If you do the exercise like this, you get much stronger and much more insightful how might we, which then can help you shape solutions later.
Which are actually critical. So the better the how might we, the better your
solution. Because they drive. Innovative. Because how might we, create boundaries for your ideation process. So you need to have really good how might we. I don't want to have, I don't know, I have an Ask the Expert interview, like in the regular sprint, and someone says, we're struggling with sales. And then all of a sudden I have 7 how might we that say, how might we increase sales? Like, that's not very helpful. So we want to avoid these sort of things. And then once you do this, this is just like in the sprint, you get those how might we's, and then you plot them on the customer journey map in order to see where you have the areas of opportunities. The rest of the exercises, after we have the how might we's and we're picking the target, we go into ideation. That's the same as in the book. So we're following that process. It's just that we, instead of making this a full day, we managed to do, we have the ideation starting on the second day. So we have research, lightning demos, crazy A, solution sketch. We do all of this at the beginning of the second day when the team is fresh, they're rested, they had the opportunity to sleep over all of the information from day one. And we noticed that because we have problem framing, we spend the day understanding the problem, we can do all of this ideation process in the first half of the second day. And then we're using the second half for making decisions, evaluating the solutions, voting, and then building the storyboard and preparing for prototyping. So we managed to do this in the afternoon of day 2. So the change here is we took this exercise from day 3 and included them in day 2. That's all. And then day 3 and 4, they remain the same. Day 3, we build a prototype. So you still need the full day to build a prototype and create the interview script. And then that's one example of a prototype. And then you run this during, you run a test in the last day, which for us is a Thursday usually, with 5 customers, the results. After the sprint, what happens? You have a game plan, that's how we call it. There is a replay report. We take everything that happened into the sprint and we put it into a report like this. It's usually anything from 40 to 70 slides. It's a narrative of design sprints that the stakeholders, especially those who were in problem framing, they can read through it. They don't need to be in a design sprint. It reads like a book, so they really can understand the process, the decisions, and the results. And then what we do in many cases, we run a moving forward workshop where we re-engage those decision makers, those stakeholders, and we have them look at the outputs of the design sprint so they can create an action plan of implementation based on the findings from testing. So that's how we can end the sprint. You can also do, and we do, design sprint retrospectives with the team. We're using this the retrogram. This is the retrogram. It's a free tool. It's available on our website. Feel free to download it. Just
Alex is sharing it.
Yeah, Alex is sharing it. Yes, thank you, Alex. So yeah, that's in the end. That's kind of like how a design sprint 3.0 looks like. Starting with the groundwork, problem framing, prep time, the actual process, and the follow up. Now, if you have clarity on the problem, if everything is smooth, you can compress phases. You can skip problem framing because you have a clear problem statement. The groundwork and the planning can be one. So it's very flexible that way. So you can run it as the original process, but like you can also use the full approach and run it in a very complex or complicated enterprise environment. So that's Design Sprint 3.0. And now I just want to talk a little bit about how teams put this into practice. And here we have 2 perspectives, the micro and the macro. That's how we label them. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's the best labeling, but you'll see why. So at the micro level, we say that teams can deconstruct process and pick up activities and run them as standalone workshops for different purposes. And I'll just give you a few examples here. So, for example, these are like not all of them. We can come up with more, or we can do more, but these are a few of them. So let's say you have a conflict between two of your teams regarding some priorities or promises made to a client, and then you need to align them and make sure that they found you get them on common ground. So as a solution, you can do a 1-hour workshop utilizing only the lightning talks activity, where you'd have every member of the team share their perspective as rows, thorns, and buds, and then get them to cluster those things, do affinity mapping, vote on the most important insights, and you have everyone on the same page. So that's one example. Or another one is you might have, again, a misalignment between stakeholders and one of the teams regarding what the customer really wants, where you have the boss saying one thing and then the team thinking about something else. And you need to stop the endless meetings they had debating this thing. What you can do is run a 2-hour workshop doing an empathy map, so you get everyone on the same page about the customer needs, and then a quick customer journey map, so everyone understands the customer journey and what the customer is trying to achieve at every stage, and based on that do a how might ways to help the team uncover the opportunities and the big and the key things that you could be doing for them. Vote for the how might ways, and you have a starting point to some new initiatives. So that's one of the things that you can do. It takes 2 hours, very easy. Or you can have a team that's struggling with creativity. And what you can do in this case, in order to boost their creativity, is run a workshop that uses the Crazy 8 sketching exercise, and then you do a full solution sketch, and finally go through the sticky decision process where they can quickly evaluate and vote on these different solutions and come up with some new ideas. So these are just a few examples, but of course there could be many combinations based on the challenge, based on the need, or what you're trying to achieve. So that's why you're learning process design sprint, which you can then leverage in many different ways. And this is at a very micro level, right? And by doing this, you're going to boost collaboration inside your team. No more debates, no more opinions. You're definitely going to make your team customer-centric or more customer-centric than currently is, because a lot of these methods are based on empathy with the customer. You help them think outside the box with the sketching, with the lightning demos, with all of these activities. And do we have anything else? Oh yeah, what I wanted to say is that a lot of time you hear leaders saying that what do we do with our teams? We're coaching our teams. And I'm like, always, we're asking, what does this coaching mean? How do you coach them when you have entire team? Like, if you think about it, if you're using these activities, you can make coaching those teams very practical and concrete. You're giving them tools on how to solve different problems. So that's something to think about.
And it's very progressive. And it's not such a big shock for teams. Oh, now we have to work in a completely different way. No, we're doing a 1-hour workshop, a 2-hour workshop, where they gradually get used to this type of processes.
And it seems we're going to be quite on time. We do have one more use case for design sprints, because you can also look at a macro level. And we hear a lot of people saying, oh, design sprints are just a part of the overall design process or something like this. It's not big enough, it's not important enough to use it at an organization level. But in fact, it is. I mean, that's our experience. And one of the use cases is you can use it during your Agile product development. Most of the companies who are doing this, they have their own product development workflow and process, and it's fine, right? Like, you're using that to build whatever it is that you're building. It's a product, it's a service. And it's very important to get things right, because all of this process is very expensive, as it involves all of your teams. It takes time, money, resources. So with design sprints, what you can do is you can validate solutions before you send them to this very expensive build process. And to make it even better, with problem framing, you can validate those problems before you validate the solutions with design sprint. So it's like a gradual de-risking of the process, and you're involving the right people in the right moment, right? You have your key stakeholders in problem framing, then you have cross-functional team in design sprints, and finally you can send things to your implementation, execution teams. So that's one way of doing. And the beauty of this is it's plug and play. You don't need to change how you do things. So everything that you see in dark blue, it's how you currently do things, how you build them. You don't need to change them. Design sprints and problem framing are plug and play. You can use them when needed to make decisions or validate some solutions. You can use them in the innovation context, where you have an innovation funnel. We all know ideas are cheap, or you can easily generate lots of ideas, and actually you have lots of initiatives that are only focused on this. Like, how do you know which one to follow? And with problem framing, you can filter those ideas, making sure that you focus only on those that are aligned with your organization business goals and objectives or innovation portfolio. And then with design sprint, you can quickly run experiments, so you can validate different ideas. So again, you can use it as part of your early innovation funnel. It's a very solid process. Startups can use it as well, problem framing, to make sure that they got the right problem. And then with design sprints, very quickly iterate on prototypes. Even before building an MVP, you can use those. Instead of using a pitch deck to raise funds, why wouldn't you use a customer tested prototype that you did in a design sprint? Now, it takes the same time. I know how long pitches doing a slide deck does, and it's long. Or big organizations could, working together, could use the same methods for building partnerships. Because imagine you have two different organizations, they're trying to find mutually interesting problems that they could cooperate. Problem framing helps them find those. And then with design sprints, they can quickly move into solutions and validate the concepts and how they'll be working together, what they'll be doing, and then they can move forward to co-creating and implementing whatever the thing is. So again, multiple use cases of problem framing and design sprints at the macro level. So that's why design sprints, there's like so many other methods that you could be using, but this one that we have enriched with those design thinking elements and empathy serves most of the purposes. So if you're interested in bringing this version of design sprints to your organization, make sure to visit our website, book a call. We're also happy to do a demo and talk more in detail about this. So you really make sure that it's something that fits your team. And we're also doing lots of these events and webinars and workshops. But our next one is going to be special because it's going to be live. It's in Bangalore. We're doing it at the Oracle Tech Hub, where we're going to share some of this content, also more about design thinking, and also Oracle will share how they scale design thinking across such a large organization, and they're doing an amazing thing at it, by the way. So that's going to be our next event, but we have many other coming, and you can see them on our website. And with that said, 5 minutes to 6, we managed to get through the content, and now we can have some Q&A. Do we have questions? We do.
Did you breathe? Give it a little.
I need to take a big breath. How do you say? A big breath.
All right. So let's see. Partially, I think. Let's see. I think I started to answer this one, but hopefully, we can give more insights. How do I identify the right stakeholders for this workshop?
The problem framing.
Design sprint. But maybe we can answer also the problem.
So two different things. For the design sprint, it's actually quite easy because we already know what the problem is. So it's very easy to ask, okay, now if this is the problem, who are the best people to solve it? Who has the right skill set to contribute to solving the problem? So that's not so much of an issue. And those people also have, in most cases, availability, and the design sprint relates to their day-to-day. So that's all good. For For problem framing, usually it's more of a detective work because we need to identify decision makers. We're in a consulting role, and and we don't have visibility inside an organizations. We use a tool that's called the stakeholder map, which we describe in our training program, and that's something that we use with our point of contact and slowly build this stakeholder map and their roles and their power and their interest in the project, and then we see, okay, which of these we need to bring in. So it is a process, I would say.
Yeah, it's not an easy answer.
But we want to end up with 6 to 8 of these stakeholders to get them in the problem framing workshop. Yes.
Right. Let's see. What methods have you used to convince the necessary stakeholders to commit 5 days to a design sprint, which is out of their normal work job responsibilities? Short answer, problem framing.
Depending on what stakeholders we're talking about. If it's decision makers, we don't strive to take them into a design sprint because they will never be able to commit, nor do they have the time. So if they're important around making decision around the product or project or service, we engage them earlier in problem framing, which it's something we can run even in half a day many times. So it doesn't take too much of their time. Like they could be in longer meetings than our workshop. And then for the actual design sprint, 1 week before the design sprints, we do these onboarding sessions. And in the onboarding session, we show the design sprint team the schedule for next week, how long it's going to take, when they are required. And at that point, we ask them to tell us if they commit to those days and to those time slots. And if they say we can't, we have meetings or whatever conflicts, then we simply are looking for replacements in the design sprint. So that's why we don't really have dropouts or people who are not committed. And once the team knows what they're supposed to do, they also realize that it's connected to their daily job in most of the cases. So it's quite easy to get this buy-in.
So hopefully, Evelyn, we've answered your question. I'm going to pause a second because we're out of time. And I want to thank everyone who has joined us until this point, and hopefully we provided you with interesting content and things that you might find helpful. Feel free to shoot us an email or send us suggestions for the next one or for the next event. We're really looking forward to it. Sometimes we even brainstorm like, what should we talk about? We have a lot of case studies, a lot of stories, but not everything is something that we can share or talk about. So we're also looking like for topics that might interest you. We got like lots of requests about doing this AI event online. We've done it in London, and I think it was a success. It went really, really well. And we're preparing now a new webinar that is going to be more accessible to those of you who cannot join us in person. But we're still discussing dates, and we will let you know when it's being scheduled. We are going to continue with answering questions. Yeah. I just want to say thank you and goodbye. And again, I hope you've enjoyed this event and you're going to join us in others. And yeah, have a great day, evening, wherever you are. If you still want to see what the answers to the rest of the questions are, just stay with us as we are going to continue. Okay, let me go back to questions. This is a good one. Start answering. How do I know, or you know, a problem once framed is worth solving?
I think the team will know. So definitely they will know that. I don't think it's the facilitator's job to know the problem is worth solving. It's your job to put everything in front of them and have them agree. And many times, like I'm in a workshop and people get excited about a topic, and I'm not 100% following that, but it seems like they discovered America or something like So yeah, if you put the right ingredients in front of them, and then you can see all of them aligned, I think that's when you know the problem is worth, or they know that the problem is worth solving, because that's the objective.
And also, if you take the business perspective, as long as it connects and aligns with the business KPIs, all the stakeholders will be on board, and they will feel, yes, it's worth solving, because this is the direction we're going, this is the vision we're having. And if we solve this, we believe it's a step towards.
And it's part of the problem framing process, like uncovering those elements that make it worth solving. Like, why are we doing these things? How are we going to measure success? What's going to happen if we don't do anything? Like, we're going to look at all of these elements, and then as we go through them, the right problem is going to reveal itself.
Also, ideally, you would look at the research. So if your customers mention and complain about that problem, well, maybe it is worth solving. So you're looking a little bit of the data on both sides. What does the business want, and what does the customer complain about, or the user needs? And then you know you're on the right track. You're never going to know for sure, but you need to look at those elements to inform your decision. Hope we did answer that. And let's see. I think I answered that. Right now, we are not doing public workshops anymore. We're going towards the direction of working with large organizations and big enterprises, and basically building their internal arm and their capabilities. But since those are like kind of two questions into one, in our workshops and in trainings, we usually bring real cases from our client work. We don't know any hypothetical case studies. All we know is what we do, and we share from our practice, and we try to dilute the content so it becomes accessible to anyone.
But if there's going to be lots and lots of interest, maybe we're going to organize a public workshop. We just don't know yet.
We'll see. We'll see. Okay, let's elaborate on this. What did you do with the expert interviews, and how do you run the separate How Might We sessions? So elaborate a little bit on this.
Okay. Expert interviews for us, they're very similar to what's in the book. So in the book, the section is called Ask the Experts, and it's basically external experts from the sprint team who can come and share their perspective. We also have the team share their perspective and doing interviews at the beginning of the sprint. We're calling them lightning talks. So two different things in our design sprint process. Lightning talks is the sprint team interviews, and then Ask the Experts or expert interviews are external experts. Both of these sessions, at the end of both of these sessions, we end up with lots of notes and insights that we capture as rows, thorns, and buds. And then we take these rows, thorns, and buds, and we use them as fuel for our How Might We session, because the team will then look at the output of all of these interviews. They're going to pick up what are the most interesting insights or pain points or challenges that they heard. And that's something that they have enough time in the dedicated How Might We session to turn into this really good, well-written How Might We's. I hope this answers it.
This is a tricky one. How to handle non-interface prototypes, such as supermarket shelves, where the mental model of the user is highly influenced by the environment?
Oh, that's interesting. We only did it once, I think, in Amsterdam. We worked with a retail company where we recreated the store in one of the rooms, and we had the shelves with the merchandise. It was retail, so it was clothing. But it was, even in that case, it was a combination of a physical experience with some digital add-on. So that was my experience then. And people get in the role. Like when we did the testing, we created a context. We made them imagine that they're shopping for something, and gave them a mission that they needed to accomplish in that store, and they got in a role quite quickly. So, as the sprint book says, we try to fake it as close as possible. I'm not sure if it's if it's possible in every instance, but like we've been running design sprints for 7 years now, and there's never been a case where we were not able to prototype a concept or an idea.
And I think like in general, what works is to set the stage in the right way. So you position that the mindset of the tester in the right moment in time, and they see themselves in that moment. And you can use video, like video trailers, how it's going to work and how things are going to look just through a trailer. So it could go the same way.
My personal opinion is that in a couple of years, AI prototyping is going to evolve at a level where it's going to be very easy to recreate this, but we'll see.
We just need to wait and see. And I think that those were all the questions we had here.
Yes, perfect.
And it didn't take so long. We didn't stay like for 1 hour.
Yes. All right then. So thank you so much for staying with us. Like we have quite a few people who remained. So thanks again, and we're looking forward to seeing you at the next event or webinar or whatever we're going to see what's coming. All right. Thank you so much. Bye bye.